Which phase I started?
Um, just before this. Yeah, yeah. This is good. The previous one. Yes. Um, what's the previous one? The one before this? Yeah, I think this is good. Okay, so we were discussing Brahmin kinship, and we looked at the differences between the Brahmin caste and the marginal caste in the same village. And so if you think then about the problem um, in the patrilineal kinship systems, I think the issue is that when lineage has to be traced or the system has to be perpetuated through men, but it must be achieved through women. So women have a central role in the system, but if you look at how it is structured, this position is not accorded to women. So in most aspects, women are devalued, despite the fact that the perpetuation of the system depends on and is achieved through women. So there are two then kinds of dilemmas that are created. One is the of this aspect of the perpetuation of the system through women, achieved through women, but the low status of women in the system. And the other dilemma is of the need for male children within the system, and there is nothing actually which can which can guarantee the presence of male children, right? Um, so this always creates a kind of anxiety within the system. So now we saw that, and this is where we can see the differences between the newer and Brahmin kinship. So in the newer, you saw that there is a way in which there are ways in which the newer deal with this problem, right? And they deal with this problem in a way that, therefore, women do not necessarily have the same kind of status as they do in Brahmin kinship in this Tamil village. So in um, in Brahmin kinship, we see that women are largely devalued as marital partners, and they're valued as mothers. So you have the power to procreate, but in terms of your sexuality, it is considered to be devaluing. It is considered to be polluting, and therefore, because it is considered to be polluting, it is something that must be controlled. So, through that kind of control of women's sexuality, then you're devaluing it, and by extension also devaluing this power of procreation. So you see that the kind of this aspect uh, um, of how sexuality is seen really has an implication has implications for how women are seen. So um, um, among the women among the Brahmin caste, women are seen really as personal devotees of their husbands. So and there is a complete severance of women from their natal kin, natal family. Their relations, their connections to the natal family become weak on marriage, and within the system there is a distrust. A distrust is built among the women. Now, partly why does this distrust happen? It happens, partly because of the kind of surveillance that needs to be there in order to control women's sexuality. So a big part of the control is tied to surveillance, if you see, and this surveillance is actually done by other women. So traditionally, there is a kind of relationship of mistrust and conflict between mother-in-law, sister-in-law, and in the women-in-laws in the family and the woman. So you saw that in next slide, please. You saw that in newer kinship, there are all these practices which help to solve this dilemma. In Brahmin kinship, this dilemma is solved by complete assimilation of the wife to the husband. So the woman becomes really this ardhangini. The word ardhangini, which is that you're a part of the man. So you're completely severed from your own unit, from your natal unit on marriage, and your everything else becomes of secondary significance. It's just your relationship with your husband, the wife's relationship with the husband, the woman's relationship with the husband that becomes the center of their lives, and all other relationships are ordered, are sort of shaped through this. Now, so then again here, because of this kind of assimilation, and because it puts tremendous pressure, the system puts tremendous pressure on the women to be able to produce a male heir. And in the event that women do not produce the male heir, again, we see that they live a life of stigma. So it's clear that the system does nothing to, there are no practices that are present that will enable the woman to actually regain some control over her life. Whereas in the newer kinship, which is again a patrilineal form like Brahmin kinship in this Tamil village, there are practices which enable the women to sort of regain some control. And that is connected, as we saw, to means of livelihood, to sort of the socioeconomic context as well. So the fact that men are the owners of cattle, it is men who will inherit cattle, but men will never milk the cow. So it is women who have the right to do that. So just simply by this sort of a norm within the system, you bring in some form of empowerment that is there within the system itself. Next one, please. So yeah, sorry. So we're going to now, if you have any questions, we can discuss them. But we'll follow this topic for a little bit more and discuss Punjabi kinship. And again, this we are introducing Punjabi kinship to really think about the question of honor and how honor is central to kinship and central to how kinship relations are ordered. And I'm referring here to an article by Veena Das. I think we will try and read this article in greater detail in one of our tutorials. Now, what the author says in this essay is that when we look at Punjabi kinship closely, we can see that these two domains, the domain of nature and the domain of culture, that kinship engages rules emerging from both these domains, the domain of nature and the domain of culture. So now, what do we see? Why is the domain of nature? Because it is the biological facts of procreation and copulation, procreation and having sexual relations. These create primordial ties between individuals. So what we're seeing then is that in the realm of nature, you have giving birth, and having sex as the two biological facts which create ties between individuals. And these ties are very strong and immutable. And this belongs to the realm of human nature. Now, why strong and immutable? You can see that these are shared. There's a shared sexuality through these aspects of sex and procreation. There's a shared sexuality, and this creates bonds that are very strong, bonds that are very difficult to resist. So now, so this is the biological realm. Now, if you look at the social realm or the natural realm, if you look at the social realm, we can see that the essence of proper kinship behavior is actually to transcend the natural forces rather than succumbing to them. So when you think of these strong, immutable bonds that are created because of how we engage in the realm, in the natural realm, in the biological realm, the social is about attempting to transcend them, and we'll see, how this is so. So, so what Das is arguing here is when we say that we transcend the facts of nature, what she's arguing is that according to in Punjabi society, the belief is that conduct that is derived from this biological sphere cannot be fully suppressed, but it must be kept in the backstage, away from public view. So what you're seeing then is that whatever I feel, which is at the realm of the biological, yes, we can move to the next one. Whatever I feel at the realm of the biological is something that I cannot suppress. So the kind of bond that I share, the strong natural bond that I share as a result of shared sexuality, as a result of procreation and having sex, these are bonds that I cannot suppress, that cannot be suppressed, but they can be transcended. One way of transcending them is to keep them away from public view, is to put them in what is called the backstage. Now, the front stage in this case is really about behavior that is governed by rules which are derived from the cultural stratum. So, what is the kind of behavior that is governed by these kind of? So, what you see is really norms of behavior that were designed. So, for instance, this idea of not acknowledging, the idea of husbands not acknowledging their wives publicly, not showing affection, husbands taking the side of the mother or the sister in a joint family setting, in a conflict. So again, here you see that kind of relationship between the wife and the mother-in-law and the sister-in-law which emerges. So, so when we think of this, and this is where honor becomes significant, because the rule of which is derived from culture is that of honor. So honor is one of the most valued ideals within the Punjabis, within Punjabi society, and it can be acquired by transcending your biological or transcending the kind of relations you have because of the natural forces. So you don't succumb to these natural urges, you don't succumb to these natural forces, you try and transcend them. So now, according to her, this transcendence, insofar as it violates certain aspects of human nature, is often presented as a kind of mask, as a kind of disguise. That is it's worn as a disguise to the pre-social or the kind of anti-social aspects operating in the biological substratum or that operates in the realm of nature. So it is often represented then as a sacrifice, which lifts an individual from a perceived lower self to a higher self. And we can see this again and again in different examples, and we'll come to some of these examples. So what we're saying is that this biological substratum is like a base instinct, your base instincts and your base sort of relationships. And in the realm of culture, in the realm of the social, you attempt to transcend these biological facts. And yeah, so you transcend these biological facts, and the transcendence can be seen either as a mask that you wear, you disguise what you're actually feeling. So you may feel tremendous love for your wife, but you don't show it. So you're transcending something that is your basic emotion that you feel in order to present a certain kind of front state, in order to present a certain kind of self. So it is on this basis that we think of kinship, and we had begun with this this idea of how kinship is at the realm of both nature and society, at the realm of both biology and the biological and the social. So it is kinship is biology, but it is also socially constructed. So if you think then these aspects, the procreation and sexual union, these are the biological facts, but kinship morality is based on these facts. When you think of procreation, other than conception, the man has no role to play. So the man's role ends with conception. And if you the kind of cultural or the kind of front stage that then happens is these aspects where the norms around how you treat your wife in front of others, how you don't show affection, whose side you take in a conflict, how the relation between the father and the child is less intimate than between mother and child. Next slide, please. Yeah, next one. I think we've done this. Yeah. So the sexual bonds which are central to the feelings between husband and wife have to be relegated to the backstage. Now, this is a natural fact that is disguised. So again, relation between parents and married daughters, relation between husband and wife, this is very easily seen. The idea of sacrifice, one example of that would be in any joint family household, the care of the child is done by any woman of the household. It's often, if the child asks for something, it's often that the mother will not respond to the child. It's another woman of the household who's likely to respond to the child. So there is a way, these are ways in which care of the children are de-individualized. So the children are children of the household. They're not children they are of course children, naturally speaking, they are of course children belonging to a particular woman, to a mother, but the care is shared care. And this is how the idea of jointness, the idea of sharing of responsibilities is also sort of made stronger. And when you're able to do this, that is when you're able to not give in to your natural sentiments and values, that's when you have sort of participated in a sacrifice. You have lifted yourself out of a sort of a lower self to a higher self, where you are sacrificing. Now, what are you sacrificing for in this case of, let's say, a mother not attending to the child, but allowing some other woman of the household to attend to the child? You are sacrificing what you're feeling, which is again a natural sentiment, in order to privilege the norm of jointness, in order to privilege the norm of shared responsibility on which the family rests. The other significant sort of category is the biradari, the idea of the biradari, which is a significant element in the kinship system. And, you transcend in order to keep social appearance, right? So who are you keeping up the social appearance for? It is the biradari. So the biradari is definitely a significant element within the kinship system. And it is, the members of the biradari, will share the same sort of, will share the same norms. And it is this, it is through the biradari that the idea of transcendence retains its values. It is in the biradari that, it is towards the biradari that you are actually expressing the idea of transcendence. So, now, next slide, please. Okay, we're moving to matrilineal descent. So let me give you, some examples from the chapter on Punjabi kinship, just to highlight some of these sort of norms that we talked about. One example is of a quarrel between a sister and the newly married wife, in which the husband beats the wife to show solidarity with the sister, and at the cost of his connection to his newly married wife. And here you find that there is an honoring of the natural bond, but this was only anti-conformity to rules, as Das points out, with the rules of social kinship, as he makes love to his wife in such an indiscreet manner to show all that there was no real estrangement between him and his wife. So the wife says that even though she was the one who got the beating, it was the mother who looked like a gambler who had lost everything. So we can read the sort of nitty-gritty of this example when we read the chapter. But this is an example of how you honor the natural bond. You honor a certain kind of place within the family, which is the place of the sister, at the cost of your other natural bond, right? So that your bonds around procreation and sexuality is being kept in the backstage. You're not allowing it to be shown. But there is a subversion that is going on here, where even though the man is conforming to the roles of social kinship, you can see that he's also sort of resisting them in a sense. The other example is of children being responded to by biradari. I'll come to that. The other example is children being responded to by others and other women in the family, where the mother is refraining from addressing her own child's need in the interests of the joint family, and so on. So when you think of honorable conduct within the kinship system, honorable conduct demands a kind of sacrifice of the natural ties that is created by biology. And the morality of kinship really stresses this transcendence. And in the ultimate analysis, and when we think of women's marriage, marriage of the women within the family, that here, and I can explain biradari in that context, but biradari is the sort of the larger extended kin network. That's what I would, so if you think of a simple understanding of what is the biradari, it's the extended kin network. It is the context in which social kinship has to be played out. And in this, honor of the family, honor of the immediate family is most significant, is a significant sort of axis on which the system is, or anchor on which the system is based, right? And now we know already that honor is tied in this case to questions of caste. So protecting the honor of the family, upholding the honor of the family is also about upholding caste. And upholding caste is possible through endogamy, right? So the rules of who you can and cannot marry have to be enforced. And so you see who enforces, how are these rules enforced, and who are you enforcing them for? You're enforcing them for your own in order to have a certain view of uh, um, a certain view of who you are and what your honor is within this larger extended kin network. So yeah. So I think that in the part that we will reserve for discussion in our tutorial will be in the context of marriage and honor, um, and how protecting that honor through marriage in the ultimate sort of one of the ultimate steps that can be taken is even sort of the sacrifice of um, mm, of children, of young people, when they fail to marry within the norms of protecting honor of the family, within the norms of retaining honor of the family. So, and I'm talking here of what is called honor killing, and how honor killing is also a way of understanding this idea of transcendence, also a way of understanding how the natural bonds are in fact being sacrificed in order for the social aspect of kinship, the social morality of kinship uh, to gain sort of prominence within the system, to fulfill that social morality of kinship. Animesh, I hope Biradari is clear. It's the extended kin network, and the members of a Biradari will share the same sort of social norms around kinship, around um, around ideas of relatedness, around ideas of honor, and so on. And therefore, it is the Biradari which enables you to move beyond the biological, to then conceive of and uphold the ideas of social kinship. Any other questions? Okay. I'm going to give me 2 minutes because I want to want to try and see if I can show a film. And just give me 2 minutes to see if I can share that. Is Chanel or Vaibhav, is anybody here? Um, okay, not yet. Uh, Kuldeep, will you share your, do you have a Gmail? Will you share your Gmail with me? Then I can send you, I can share the link of this video with you and you can play it. Okay, thanks. Okay, I've pasted the link here actually. Can you see if you can access it? So we are going to discuss, now we've discussed patrilineal systems of kinship. We are going to take up matrilineal forms of kinship. And before I do that, I'm showing you this video on marriage. Because again, you see, we are discussing family, marriage, and kinship sort of as a set of institutions together to see again the kind of interconnectedness that there is. So I wanted you to see this film on marriage, to think about then the different forms of marriage. And I think it's important to, it'll be a useful, sort of conceptually useful to think about this in terms of matrilineal kinship. Kuldeep, what's happening? Are you able to play this?
No, you will have to give me access of the drive because
Huh?
I need access for the Google Drive file that you sent.
Okay, you're not able to know.
You might have received a mail regarding giving access.
Okay, let me see. Yeah, okay. Does that work now? Yeah, great. Not audible though.
And the voice is not.
Because you were on mute, I think. Is that why that happened? Try again. No. Can anybody hear? Is it just me?
No, ma'am.
Yeah, I think you said there's something in your settings that you'd have to do.
I don't know if somebody knows, then please tell me how to do that part.
Maybe you need to check the add computer audio option while sharing the screen.
Yeah.
Like you need to share again.
Frontline World.
Is it audible now?
Not to me.
Yes, ma'am, it was audible, but the voice level is very low.
Okay, so then we can.
This is Lugu Lake, lying just east of the beautiful city of Shangri-La.
I'm sure you can push up the volume, right? It's very low.
Most Chinese, this area is called Women's Kingdom.
Yeah.
A place where women do not accept many rules of Chinese society. I grew up far away in Shanghai. I've been thinking of coming here for over a decade. I want to see how much freedom of life a woman can possibly enjoy. After a plane flight and a 7-hour drive, I arrived at the Luoshui village by the lake. People here are called Moso. The Moso are a small minority group that has an estimated population of 30 to 50,000. They believe in Tibetan Buddhism and have their own language. Chinese say the Moso society is the country's last matriarchy.
这里结婚人家会觉得
I can't hear again. What happened?
Yes, ma'am, it is not audible to me too.
Yeah.
Chinese say the Mosul society is the country's last matriarchy.
这里结婚人家会觉得挺快的，我也会觉得很别扭的，在这种地方结什么婚？本来风俗就是这样的。
Mosul women do not marry in the traditional way. They practice what they call working marriage, a tradition that has persisted for at least 1,000 years. A man walks into a woman's bedroom at night, and she decides if she wants him to stay. In the morning, he must leave.
不要太使劲滑，在边上玩一下就行。因为他走婚海场什么的都不统一嘛，各干各的嘛，只是晚上两个人在一起谈情说爱嘛。我们的爱情应该是两个人合得来就在一起，合不来就各走各的，很和气的就散开了，何必要去结婚呢？何必要去什么法院啊搞个什么结婚证呢？说难听一点，就拿那一本红色的结婚证当自己的手铐干什么呢？对不对？
Mosul children don't live with their fathers. They're raised by their mothers and their mothers' families. Once the media started touting Mosul society as a free love culture, hundreds of thousands of tourists began coming. Most of the tourists are Chinese, from the Han majority, like me.
那你们汉人就不一样了，要是有个小孩生长在大城市里面，他要是只有妈妈没有爸爸，人家肯定要说他没有爸爸的野孩子嘛。然后在这里生一个这样的小孩，谁会这样说呀？都不是一样的。
I first met Cha Tuo in her little restaurant bar along the lake. She also has the only internet bar in the village. We became friends. She said I could call her a tomboy as others did. And she took me to see a Mosul performance. Singing and dancing are an important part of Mosul culture. Now they sing and dance for the tourists every night, unless the rain is too heavy. But what attracts the tourists most are the exotic possibilities of free love.
最多的问题肯定是，你走婚了没有？走了几个？晚上我要跟你走婚。我最讨厌的就一张口就是能不能走婚呀？晚上我们可不可以去走婚呀？好像很自以为是那种。每次我都是说，你觉得你那么有魅力呀？你有那个本事吗？他们就不说话了。哈哈。
Cha Tuo says Mosul women can have as many sexual relationships as they want. But some tourists insist on taking advantage of their traditions.
走婚要有感情的，最起码你要认识。然后他就说没关系，他可以付钱。他说要多少钱，然后当时我很生气，然后就马上就打了他2个耳光嘛。
The women's kingdom also attracts women tourists who are interested in the available men.
摩梭的小伙子很亮很帅，他们会骑马摔跤，然后太阳晒得黑黑的，非常的强壮，非常的那个勇猛 strong。
This is Zhang's second visit here in a few months. She says 8 Mosul men have fallen in love with her.
我们汉族人表达爱情的话会有很多麻烦，他不会像摩梭人哇很奔放，我喜欢你，我会喝酒，我会跳舞，然后喝酒跳舞以后我有情绪，我就表达我喜欢你，我要跟你走婚，我喜欢，非常的直接。
Today, each of the 70 families in the Loshui village owns at least a hotel or restaurant. They entertain the tourists together and split the money equally. Since tourism began here in the early 90s, Luoshui has become the wealthiest Mosul village. But Chaco says, if I want to see the real Mosul culture, I have to go deeper into the mountains. With the help of a local monk, I headed to a remote Mosul village. "7 hours on horseback, up and down the hills. Only the locals know these roads."
Yeah.
High on the mountain, we found Wujiao village. About 200 Mosul live here. When we arrived unannounced, a family immediately took us in. In Wujiao, everyone works for the common good. Families choose the most capable women to run the household. Men help with the farm work. In Mosul, there's no abandonment. The old don't have to live alone, and the young are taken care of by the big families. Unlike other rural areas in China, where many girl babies are abandoned, here, the young Mosul women are proud of being girls.
这以后女孩子什么都是走得来就好嘛。
Traditionally, Mosul women can't wear dresses or skirts until they turn 13, when they go through a grown-up ceremony. Then they can start dating, looking for men they would like to father their children, and they get their own rooms. La Tuo was excited to show me her room and everything in it.
自己绣，要像原先的我学的时候种啊，这个是你，可以的。这个都是家里面给你的，妈妈给你的吗？妈妈的，你全部都喜欢呀，这个都是我喜欢呀。都 heavy。
I've never had that many rings on my fingers. La Tuo says she loves to put on rings, but she will never wear a wedding ring.
机会还不好玩嘛，在一起。吵吵闹闹的一天唠过去唠去来嘛，
Asking questions about sexual relationships in front of men is an absolute taboo in Mosul culture. But women can talk about the subject when men are not around.
我们这里面是白天的哪些出去啊，一定要女孩子不喜欢男孩子就给他劝够嘛。我不喜欢你的也是唱给他听。
And at night, she says if the woman is interested, she would quietly open the door for the man.
现在这场家里面，女孩子家里面一般都是
Yes, ma'am, it is over.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments about the video? How do you think it's different? What is it that is different from marriage as an institution in the way that we know it?
And it is almost opposite of what we think of marriage as an institution in our social order. Like it seems almost a mirror image of what we have here.
Okay. Others? Okay, so we want to, the reason I've shared this is we are going to discuss matrilineal descent, and the example that I will take up for this is Nair kinship in Kerala, and we'll see how matrilineal kinship among the Nair, for instance, how that, what is the nature of marriage in that. And I wanted to show you this because I think there are similarities between this Chinese example of what they call walking marriage, where marriage is actually a very fragile tie, and yet you have a kinship system, you have, and again, that too is a what they call a matriarchal system. And we'll talk a little bit about the difference between matrilineal and matriarchy. But in the matrilineal system, both the biological and the social links are through women. And the father is, so you can think of it is in terms of, both in terms of descent as well as in terms of residence. It is matrilineal. It is the women who, who define descent as well as residence. And now, in this system, it is not that men did not have authority, right? It is the father who does not have authority over his children, but the mother's brother holds authority over the sister's children. So it's really, in that sense, it's your mama who's supposed to have authority over you. So there is a strong and very close bond between mothers and sons and brothers and sisters. The husband and wife links are weak in the matrilineal descent system. So the father here is merely a man who lives with the mother. And so in this case, what happens is that it is the idea is that it is exclusively the mother who builds up the child's body, and the man is not seen as contributing in this. And so there is no bond between the father and the child. There is no physical union whatsoever between the father and the child. And everything that is handed to the child is handed through the mother's line. So this is the sort of matrilineal conception of kinship. And this is most important in this idea of the relationship between the father and the child. And the marginality of that relationship is important in understanding how matrilineal is structured. Now, it's important to distinguish at the outset between matrilineal and matriarchal societies. Matrilineal is simply descent through the females, and it is not synonymous with matriarchy. And matriarchy is where power and authority rests with women. So in matrilineal societies, as in the case of the Nair, we see that descent is through the women, but power and authority rest with the men. It is not just the father that it rests with, it rests with the mother's brother. So brothers and sisters are, form the primary household, and it is the brother who has authority over a sister's children. So both descent and, next slide please, both descent and inheritance are through the female line. And just because descent and inheritance are through the female line, we cannot say that power and authority is also lies with females. Again, here is you see a matrilineal descent system. You can look at, this is something we can actually reserve for the tutorial. We can look at the matrilineal and patrilineal diagrams separately, and then discuss how they are, how are they being represented differently. Okay, so now this slide I think is something that we've already discussed. where the focus is on, but leave it at this, focus is on alliance, where what we are saying is that, and all of this, when we think about all of this, these are, you're trying to look at kinship systems in terms of what happens through alliance, right? So, so it's to uncover, and for Levi-Strauss, as I said, when you think about structures, the idea was to uncover the structure or the underlying principles because of which kinship decisions and practices came to be. And for him, the one underlying principle is incest taboo, the universal prohibition against marrying your own, which then puts out a positive marrying rule, which is that you are looking for exogamy, which is that you're forced to look for wives outside of your own group, indicating you cannot marry within your family. Now, again, we know that it is a universal, what is called natural norm in that sense, but we know that the social implications or the social sort of norms around this is also different, so that the marrying rules are different for different societies. We know that cross-cousin marriage is possible in some societies and not possible in others. So cross-cousin marriage in a particular society could be a taboo, could fall within norms of incest, but in other societies it doesn't. Next one, please. Yeah, this also we've covered. So yeah, I think this we've all covered, to think about the two groups of wife givers and wife takers and the restricted and generalized exchange. Okay, just leave it there. So so we're talking then about matrilineal societies and specifically the Nair. So here, again, as I said, authority and power does not necessarily reside in the women. There is so there is a good deal of authority, but usually in such societies, again, the dominant roles are with the men, and they don't coincide with the principles of descent and inheritance. So the principles of descent and inheritance give primacy to women, but authority and power relations give, that domain still gives primacy to men. It is not just the men that the women marry, right? It is the men which is the siblings in the family. So in such situations, what you have is called the matrilineal puzzle, the problem of combining these two principles, that descent flows through women and men are running the systems. So the men who, and in this case, the men are the women's brothers. So a man's inheritance passes to his sister's son and not to his own sons. In the matrilineal system, then, authority and property holding are mainly the man's prerogative, even though descent is through the women, through the woman. So this creates a problem. So what is happening then? You see that the man in a household is in the household with the sister, and the man does have right to the property, but this property goes to the sister's children. So the man marries somebody else, which is in another household. In that household too, it is the woman's children who will get the property, but in that the man has no control. It is the woman's brother who has control, right? So this creates a problem, that there is there are two principles which are operating. One, which is descent through the women's line and female line, and second, that power and authority still resides with the men. And here you see that it's important to keep this unit, the siblingship unit, together, right? Because if this unit, if the siblingship unit is compromised in any way, then the system will not will not work. The matrilineal system will not really work. So, so the way in which that this problem is resolved, therefore, this duality is resolved is by brothers and sisters remaining together. So the sacrifice here is that husbands and wives cannot live together within the same household because the husband always has interest in the property of the sister. So you're living apart as husband and wife, and this creates then specific kinds of practices within marriage. One practice is what is called the alternating marriage, which means that husband and wife alternate annually in his or her kinship group to keep up relations with both. You know, so you may have alternating marriage, you may have residence at the wife's place, and here what you then find is that the men are scattered and the women live together. So the only logical solution of this matrilineal puzzle is for marriage itself, in the way that we know of it in patrilineal, is for marriage itself to collapse as an effective living together of a man and woman. If this effective living together of a man and woman and the marriage as we know it in patrilineal, if we were to uphold that in matrilineal, then the matrilineal system is likely to collapse. So, so in this context, Nair, if you think of Nair matrilineal, it is defined, as I said, both in terms of descent and residence. So we established that it is important for a certain kind of residence in order for matrilineal to survive. That kind of with that kind of residence, you cannot have the conventional ideas of marriage, which is husband and wife living together, you know, and being part of this conjugal unit. So the reason I showed you that the little video about the marriage is also to think about how marriage can, what are the different ways in which this institution exists, right? So it exists in a particular way in patrilineal. We saw that it's most patrilineal systems are also patrilocal, or they may be neolocal, so that largely what you're saying is that residence is controlled by the men. And this has implications for women's position and women's role and status within marriage and within family. Here we are saying that in matrilineal, we are saying that the residence pattern has to be such that women and the husband and wife are forced to sort of either live separately or basically not have control over the same residential unit. In Nair matrilineal, a residence at marriage is natolocal, which means both husbands and wives stayed where they were in their own property group. And each property group has matrilineally related kin, and husbands and wives then do not live together. Because they don't live together, husbands do not get a say in the property group of the wife.
Hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
What is the motive of marriage then in the case of Nair for the men?
What is the
motive of marriage for the men? Because essentially they are not living together, nor they are having any say in the property. So,
but
what?
Again, sexual union, having children, those motives are all there.
Okay.
Right. So continuance of the system. So marriage has to be there in order for the system to continue, isn't it? So, you know, even for the women within a family, you're marrying, you know, the incest taboo ensures that you have to marry outside, right? So you're not marrying within your family. So when you move outside, you marry. But the point is that in patrilineal, we think of the woman as, you saw how in Brahmin kinship, we said that the woman has to then become part of the husband's family, right? So there is a kind of severance from the natal family. This is the exact opposite, because your continuity depends on your connection with your natal family for the women. Yes, Jahnavi?
Ma'am, if a girl don't have a brother, then who will head the family?
Yeah, so if there is no, then it will be a women-headed household, of course. Right?
Okay.
And yeah, it will be women-headed, and it will, if there is no brother, if there are only sisters, then it's of course sisters who, because in any case, the property will have to be inherited through the female line, right? So then the head of the family, or I mean, eventually, I suppose, when the sisters have children, the male children will be the ones who will own the property, and right? Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am, it
In
does.
most cases where there are no brothers, it will be the women who are heading the household. And eventually it will be the wife's, the woman's children who will then decide the sort of the next line of inheritance and how the next line of inheritance will go. So yeah, so each property group will have matrilineally related kin, and husbands and wives will not live together. Property groups will be headed by the oldest male member, right? Called the Karnavaran. Now here, I think there is a part of the answer to part of your question lies partly in this, that is headed by the oldest male member. And eventually, whenever there is a male member, that is the person who will head this unit. If there are no male members present, it will be the women. Now, within this system, the mother's brothers hold very clear authority over their sisters' children, and older women will have informal authority over the younger ones and over their young children, but all women and children are considered to be legal minors. So in matrilineal systems, the men who have the most authority over a woman are not the ones who have legitimate sexual relations with the women. And this is a big difference between matrilineal society and patrilineal society. So the women that you control are not the women that you have sexual relations with. And so you would think that women in these societies in some way could be more independent, as the men who were controlling them are also not their sexual partners. But this is not what is always experienced. Nair women often point out that it is easier, in fact, to persuade their husbands or persuade people you have sexual relations with than to persuade a brother. So there is always a kind of distance that women feel with their brothers, and a distance that then means that they're not able to convince them beyond a point. Now, this system, for this system to work, you need to, as I said, you need to have a certain kind of marriage. You need to have a certain kind of structure of marriage as an institution. And so somewhere what we are saying then is that the marriage is a fragile tie, right? It does not have the strength that you see in patrilineal. So two things. One is the kind of control over women and what this control is for. And clearly here we see that while there is a power and authority and control over the household, there isn't control over sexuality, right? So there is some kind of independence that women definitely have within the system, because we don't see the same kind of control of sexuality that we see in patrilineal systems. And yeah, so it's important to think of this think of the system as surviving because of certain practices around marriage. And there are two types of marriages among the Nair. One is the tali tying ceremony, and the second is the sambandham, which is a joining together with one or more husbands. So the tali tying is a kind of permission to then have this sambandhan or to have this kind of unions with one or more husbands. So after the tali tying marriage, the woman is free to have sexual relations with any man that she chooses, provided that the man is a person of their own caste or a higher one. And these men are considered her husbands, even though there are no sort of religious ceremonies that are there to mark these unions. So the ceremony is the tali tying ceremony, and then you have the sambandham or the relationships that the woman enters into post the tali, or is allowed to enter into post the tali tying ceremony. So there is a system of sharing husbands in place. Husbands visit their wives in the households of their wives. As we already know, they don't stay in the wife's household. And so what you're seeing here then is that the wife may have more than one husband, and so there are practices in place to work out when a particular husband can visit, and so on and so forth. So now these arrangements, if you think of these arrangements, similar to what we saw in the case of the walking marriage in China, they cannot be interpreted as reflecting sort of sanctioned casual sex. Now, when you think of it from the context of patrilineal society and the kind of control there is over women and women's bodies and sexuality, we could very easily slip into this kind of argument where we think of this as a certain kind of promiscuity. And but when we look at it in the context of that society, we will see that they cannot be we cannot think of them as reflecting promiscuity. What we can think of is why does marriage become like this? And partly, as I said, it's important for marriage to be the way it is, which is a slender tie. Kathleen Goff, who's an anthropologist who describes Nair marriage as the slenderest of ties, because neither children nor economic interests nor common residence unites married couples. So in the case of patrilineal systems, we saw all of this: economic interests, children, common property, residence, all of this unites the conjugal unit, brings the conjugal unit and the marital couple together. In the matrilineal, in the Nair marriage, none of this is relevant for how we see marriage. So it is the slenderest of ties, and it must be the slenderest of ties in order for Nair kinship system to survive. I'll stop here. It's almost time. We can take questions, or if you don't have any questions now, I suggest you go through the PPT and think about it a little bit, and then we can begin the next class with some of your questions. So this week's tutorial, we will just again discuss any problems you may have with what we have done so far post the minor exam, and also it will be to discuss your if you have any questions regarding the evaluations, the minor. So your grades, I think, have been shared on Moodle.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, when will we be provided with the readings of like this kinship topic?
I can upload them today. I'll upload them today. For next week's tutorial, I think we will, I was planning to do compliance, but I think maybe we can do that another time. But let's read Punjabi kinship, that essay. It's a longish essay, but it's not very difficult, I think. So we can read that, and we will have a discussion on that. So I'll put up the readings by today.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, I'll end the meeting. Thank you.